أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Lesson number 187, Surah Al-Furqan. وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. And the day that the wrongdoer will bite on his own hands. He is going to bite his own hands. Why? Out of regret. يَقُولُ, he will say, يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا. Oh, I wish I had taken with the messenger a way. I wish I had adopted the way of the messenger. I wish I had followed the footsteps of the messenger. يَعَضُّ. يَعَضُّ is from the root letters Ayn, Dad, Dad, عَض. And عَض is to bite or grab something with one's teeth. But in particular, it is to bite something that is living, that is alive. Like for example, your hand, if you bite it, it's going to feel pain. Why? Because it's something that is living. And we have learned this earlier, that وَإِذَا دَخَلُوا عَضُّوا عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَنَامِلَ مِنَ الْغَيْظِ. That when they enter upon you, they bite their fingers out of rage against you. So when does a person bite his own hand? When? Think about it. When do people bite their fingers? When they're nervous? When they're anxious? When they're worried? Sometimes when they're angry? Sometimes out of shock? Sometimes out of grief? Out of regret? So it could be various reasons. But over here, وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. Why? Out of anger. He will be angry with himself. He will be very sad. He'll be very regretful. يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. But notice that this person has been described as zalim. He himself is unjust. He himself is wrong. Nobody has wronged him. Nobody has been unfair to him. He has been unfair himself. Therefore, he cannot find anyone to blame except himself. Therefore, he will bite his own fingers. Now, al-zalim, al over here has been understood as the particular zalim. And who is he? The mushrik, the kafir. Because inna shirka la zulmun azim. And wal kafiruna hum al-zalimun. So the mushrik, the kafir, is the zalim. So on that day, out of extreme regret, he will bite his own hands. And secondly, al-zalim has been understood as, this is general, that anyone who is zalim, anyone who has done this particular zulm. And which zulm is this? That he will bite his own hands, his own fingers. يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي. He will say, oh, I wish that. Layta is a harf which gives the meaning of wish as well as hope. That I wish, if only. And usually it is used for such things that seem impossible. Like for example, يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ تُرَابًا. Oh, I wish I was dust. That's not possible. So similarly, when this person will regret, oh, I wish I had taken the way of the messenger, is it going to help at all? No. Is it possible? No. يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا. I wish I had taken away with the messenger. What does it mean by this? Meaning, I wish I had believed in the messenger. I wish I had followed the messenger. I had adopted the way that the messenger taught. So when the day of judgment will come, such a person will regret. And out of that regret and sorrow, he will bite his own hands. But his regret will not avail him at all. In Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah 66, we learn, يَوْمَ تُقَلَّبُ وُجُوهُهُمْ فِي النَّارِ يَقُولُونَ يَا لَيْتَنَا أَطَعْنَا اللَّهَ وَأَطَعْنَا الرَّسُولَ. The day their faces will be turned about in the fire. And they will say, how we wish that we had obeyed Allah and we had obeyed the messenger. So if a person does not obey the messenger today, if a person does not follow the messenger today, it will be a source of great regret for him on the Day of Judgment. Great remorse. Because when a person does not follow the messenger, he does not obey the messenger, he's not on the right way. His deeds are not going to be accepted. His deeds are going to be turned into haba'an mansura. And that day will become yawmun asir for him, a very difficult day. But more so this person will regret Ya waylata, oh woe to me. Wail, this is different from layta. Layta is I wish, and wail is destruction. So ya waylata, oh woe unto me. Laytani, I wish that lam attakhiz fulanan khalila, that I had not taken so and so as my friend. I wish I had followed the messenger, and I wish I had not taken that person as a friend of mine. Khalil. Who is Khalil? A friend. But what kind of a friend? A close friend, an intimate friend. Because remember that khalal, it means gaps, the space between two things. From this is khilal. And khilal is that when a person is doing wudu, he makes sure that the space between his fingers is wet. And for a man, that his beard, from inside it's also wet. And for that, what does he do? That he passes his wet fingers through the beard. Similarly, when you're doing wudu, what are you supposed to do? That pass your wet fingers from the middle to make sure that the fingers are wet from inside. This is especially necessary when a person is using less water. But if the tap is running and you have your hands underneath, that's obvious that your fingers are going to get wet from inside as well. So khalal is what? Gap between things. And Khalil is such a friend who has entered the gaps of your heart. That his friendship has penetrated your heart. It seeped into your heart. Special friend, intimate friend, close friend. Someone whom you do not want to upset. Someone who you're very, very close to. You're identified with them. You never ever want to displease them. Lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. So at that time, he will wish that he had not taken so and so as his friend. Why? Because his friend misled him. His friend misled him. The fact is that a person is on the religion of his friend. Wherever his friend goes, whatever his friend does, whatever his friend says, however his friend thinks, whatever words his friend says, that becomes a part of him as well. Isn't it so? Unconsciously. You don't even realize, and you develop the same habits. You don't even realize, and you're talking in the exact same way as them. You don't even realize you're using the same words. Many times it is said that when people get married, they begin to resemble their spouse. In their habits, in their manner, in the way of their speech. Why? Because friends, they influence one another. Especially friends who are close. So, ya waylata, laytani, lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. I wish I had not taken so-and-so as my friend. Because he misled me. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. He led me away from the remembrance. He misled me from the dhikr. بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. After it had come to me. What does the dhikr mean? Remembrance of Allah. Dhikr also means scripture, the Quran. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. The Quran came to me. I understood. I believed in it. I began following it. But here, this friend of mine came. I took him as a close friend. And what happened then? What happened then? He took me away from the Quran. He made me give up all those things I had started. He made me forget everything that I had learned. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِلْإِنسَانِ خَذُولًا. And shaitan is ever to the human being khadul, one who deserts, one who abandons, one who forsakes. Khadul is from khadalam, and khadala is to forsake someone at the time when they need your help. So shaitan misled me, and now when I'm in trouble, he has not come to help me. Similarly, that friend of mine, he misled me. Now when I'm in trouble, he has not come to assist me. And we have learnt about the betrayal of shaitan in Surah Ibrahim, ayah number 22. That وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Shaitan will say on the Day of Judgment, Allah told you something, I made a promise with you as well. Allah made a promise with you, I made a promise. But obviously I broke my promise. But I had no authority over you. I just told you, and you followed me. So today, don't blame me. Blame only yourselves. So on the day of judgment, shaitan is going to abandon people. Similarly, the friends who claim to love you, the friends who claim to be your best friends, those who are very sincere to you, those who are very loyal to you, if that friendship is not for the sake of Allah, if this friendship does not draw you closer to Allah, such friends will also abandon one another on the day of judgment. Because what do we learn? Al-akhillau ba'duhum li ba'din adu. That friends, some of them will be enemies to one another on the day of judgment. Except for who? Illa al-muttaqun. Except for those people who have taqwa. So such friendship which is not for the sake of Allah, which takes a person away from the deen, which takes a person away from the Qur'an, such friendship will be a source of great regret for a person on the day of judgment. It is said that these ayat were specifically revealed with regards to Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Who was he? He was one of the chiefs of Makkah. And he was one of the elite of Makkah. And he was also friends with Prophet ﷺ. Before Muhammad ﷺ became a prophet. He was also friends with him. And it was the habit of Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt that whenever he would return to Makkah after a trip of his, after a trade journey, whenever he would return, he would hold a feast for all of his friends and his acquaintances. So, once he returned, and he had a feast, and he had invited many of his friends, and among them was also Muhammad ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he was there, Uqba, he asked him to eat. But the Prophet ﷺ said, I cannot eat your food until you testify that Allah is one and has no partner in His worship and that I am the messenger. Now, can you force someone to do that? Think about it. Realistically, are we supposed to force people like this? No. So why did the Prophet ﷺ say this to him? He was his friend. Not best friend. He was one of his friends. And within friends, you can impose such conditions. You can say such things to your friends. So because they were friends, the Prophet ﷺ told him that you have to believe, only then I will eat. So Uqba, he believed. He proclaimed the Shahada. He accepted Iman. He became a Muslim at that point. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he ate the food. Now afterwards, Uqba, his other friends found out that Uqba had become Muslim. And that he had said the Shahada before Muhammad ﷺ. And amongst those friends was Ubay ibn Khalaf, who was one of the staunch opponents of the Prophet ﷺ. So he began questioning Uqba, that have you really become a Muslim? How dare you? And how could you leave your religion? How could you go against our way? So Uqba, he tried to convince his friend that I was just hosting honorable guests, and if they left without eating my food, that would be a source of great shame for me. So this is the only reason why I said, I didn't really mean it. He was just saying that to comfort his friend, Ubay ibn Khalaf. But Ubay ibn Khalaf, he said, I'm not going to accept this unless and until you go and spit on the face of Muhammad ﷺ. When you will do that, then I will know you were only saying it. So in order to please his friend, in order to satisfy his friend, he actually went and did that. He left Islam. He left his belief. He abandoned it just to please his friend. And we learn that both of these people, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt as well as Ubay ibn Khalaf, both of them, they were killed at the Battle of Badr. Now, what do we see? That Uqba, out of peer pressure, in order to please his friends, he even left his religion. Now, although these verses are specifically about him, they were revealed in a specific context, but we can extract many, many lessons from these verses for ourselves as well. That sometimes because of peer pressure, just to satisfy our friends, just to please them, we say things, we do things, we compromise our religion, we do such things that are not acceptable, which are not liked by Allah and His Messenger, but we do them anyway, just to gain the approval of people, just to please them, just to satisfy them. Can you think of any examples? How people end up compromising their religion, saying things, doing things that are inappropriate just to satisfy their friends? Can you think about it? In real life? Like for example, it's possible that we're at the mall with a friend and she's not that concerned about salah timings. And just to please her, just to satisfy her, we accompany her and we compromise our salah. We don't pray on time. We say we'll pray when we get home. What can I say to her? She'll mind. I'm seeing her after so long. If I tell her I have to go home, she'll be so upset with me. It's not right. Friends even have haqq. Sometimes that with our friends when we're sitting, we laugh, we make jokes, we say things just to please one another, just to make one another laugh. And such things are absolutely inappropriate. We must not talk about those things. And sometimes making such jokes is actually haram. But we will repeat them, we will say them, we will talk about them. Why? Just to amuse one another. Just to please one another. Sometimes we have that laid back attitude. Why? So that they don't see us that very strict and we're very serious. Just so that we can be considered as people who are very relaxed, very jolly, people who love fun. Just to be acknowledged by people. We make so many compromises. There are times when people will claim themselves to be other than Muslim just to be admitted in a particular school, just to be admitted in a particular workplace, just to get a particular passport, visa. People will change the name of their religion. Sometimes just to satisfy our friends who may not be Muslim or who may be Muslim just by name, we accompany them, we go to places and we eat there where we should not be going, where we should not be eating. Just recently somebody was telling me that her son is being pressurized by his cousins that he should accompany them to a concert and it's going to be a lot of fun. And this boy, he knows that he should not be going. But just because there's so much pressure from everybody, he wants to go. And he's telling his mom, you give me permission. You allow me. But his mother says, how can I allow you? What do we see? That many times, just because of the pressure of our friends, we don't want to upset them. We go to places, we witness things, we do things, we eat things, we say things which are not acceptable just to please them. There are certain events like the prom or, some dinners, holiday dinners, things like that in which we have to go, we have to please our friends, we have to satisfy them. And in order to be a part of the crowd, to feel a part of that crowd, we may dress inappropriately, we may say things that are inappropriate, we may compromise our salah. Sometimes it happens that people say such horrible things, nonsense things, such as a friend will say, on the Day of Judgment, I'm going to ask Allah, why did this not happen and why did that happen? And we don't have the courage to stop them. Similarly, a friend is backbiting. We don't have the courage to stop them. In fact, we become a part of that backbiting. Just because your co-worker, your boss, your professor has set up a meeting at a bar, you'll go there just to maintain that good relationship so that you can get that good work and you can get that paycheck and you can get that thing on your resume. For such things, what happens? Major things of the deen are compromised. Sometimes it even happens because of the family. That your friends, okay, your workplace, you could ignore them. But let's say if someone chooses to marry someone who is not that strong on their deen, who is not concerned about the deen, then what's going to happen? Such a person is going to end up compromising their religion. I remember one of my friends, every time a proposal would come, she would set this condition that, does he pray 5 times a day? And she would be told, you know what? Forget it now. It's okay. You're so old. Forget about it. You're getting older day by day. Just accept. Doesn't matter if he does not pray 5 times a day. You never know, he might change. But she stayed firm. No way. I'm not going to marry someone who does not pray 5 times a day. She did not compromise over there. And alhamdulillah, Allah gave her a husband who prays 5 times a day in the masjid. So this is the reward when a person is patient. But what happens when it comes to choosing spouses even, people tend to compromise. And as a result, they suffer in their deen. But sometimes this opposition comes from family. You cannot exactly cut off from them. And this is why we learned earlier that we have made some of you fitna for one another. Atasbirun, will you be patient or not? That when your family is opposing you, when your family is telling you not to do certain things which you must do, then what do you do at that point? Do you give up or do you remain patient? Do you do sabr? Anybody else raise their hand? Go ahead. And going to the marketplace is not something that is liked, that is appreciated. We learn from a hadith that do not be the first one to enter and do not be the last one to exit. It's the place where shaitan is. But what happens sometimes, just to hang out with friends, just to hang out, where do people go? To the mall. They're not going to buy anything. They don't have any money. And if they do have money, they will go buy something today, return it tomorrow, exchange it tomorrow. And this is what they do. Or window shopping. Going into one store after the other store, listening to haram music, watching haram scenes. I don't understand why people do that. Why? Just to satisfy friends. Just to please them. Sometimes because of bad company, what happens to a person? That he develops bad habits. Such as, sometimes young boys, they will develop the habit of smoking and they don't have much money, so that will lead them to theft and that will lead them to many, many wrong things. Where did it start from? Bad friends, bad company. So, this is a very, very serious thing. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. That sometimes we remember what we're supposed to do, dhikr. But on the other hand, a friend is telling us something different. There is a bell going on in our head. It's time to pray. You should not be watching this. You should not be here. But what happens? We ignore that. And the friend, لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. And such friends, they're not sincere. They don't wish well for you. Because when you will really be in trouble, they will not come to aid you. Now, this ayah does not mean that a person must not have friends. Because sometimes this is how we understand. That friends, they can lead you astray, they can make you forget the deen, they can make you do many wrong things. Therefore, I do not keep any friends. I've seen people who do that, who say that. I might as well stay alone, because friends, they're a bad influence, therefore I'm not going to keep any friends. No. This is not what the meaning of this ayah is. The meaning is that a person should not choose such friends that are going to affect his deen. Because you see, the Prophet ﷺ said that al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, that a person is on the religion of his friend. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. So each one of you should see, who does he befriend? Who has he made his friend? Because when you befriend someone, there are two possibilities of maintaining that friendship. The only way that friendship will continue, there are only two possibilities. And what are those? That either you will change or your friend will change. Otherwise, the friendship is not going to last. You understand? Because friendship is only possible within who? Like-minded people. If you think a particular way, your friend thinks the same way, you will have that friendship. But if you begin thinking differently, or they begin thinking differently, you will notice. If you look back in your life, you had many friends before, but you don't have them now. Why? You've changed, or they've changed. You've gone in one way, they've gone another way. So the only way that a friendship is going to last, is going to continue, is that either you change, or your friend changes. So we have to see, who are we choosing as our friends? Is it such friends who make us leave the deen, or who make us adopt the deen? We learned that Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that my love is mandatory for those who love one another for my sake. My love is mandatory on those people who love one another for whose sake? For my sake. And they sit together for my sake. And who visit one another for my sake. And who give generously to one another for my sake. What happens when two people are friends? What happens? They will spend a lot of time sitting together, talking, isn't it? They will give one another gifts. Now, one is that a person befriends another. Why? Because he gets benefit. You understand? You befriend someone, why? Because you get benefit out of that friendship. What is that benefit? Your friend is very good at shopping, at makeup, at fashion. If you're friends with her, she's going to give you excellent tips. This particular store has the best makeup, has the best this, has the best that. And, she has that interest, so you get that benefit. That if you're with her, you're going to be up to date. This is one reason behind friendship. She's an excellent cook. If you befriend her, she'll give you a few recipes. She's very rich. If you befriend her, she's going to give you good gifts. She's very wise. If you befriend her, she's going to give you very good advice. So one friendship is because you want to get some benefit out of that person. But the other friendship is for the sake of Allah. That when you sit with her, when you meet her, it causes you to increase in your iman. When you sit with her, she corrects you. When you sit with her, she advises you. When you sit with her, you're not talking about nonsense things. You're talking about useful things. When you sit with her, it's not a waste of time. It's a time spent in a lot of productive stuff. When you go out with her, it's not going out to the mall. It's perhaps going out to visit a sick person, to go volunteer somewhere. So you understand? One type of friendship is for the sake of worldly benefit. The other type of benefit is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To get stronger in one's deen. And when a person has such friendship, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love becomes mandatory for such people. What do we learn in Surah Al-Asr? That وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. These two things are very important. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. If you have a friend who will tell you to do what is right, who will stop you from wrong, who will encourage you to do good, who will encourage you to be patient, that friendship is good. But if you have a friend who is encouraging you to do wrong, who is encouraging you to not take it anymore and to blow up and to show anger, to show frustration, is that friendship good? No way. In Muslim, we learn another hadith that Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, he reported, the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah Almighty will say on the day of resurrection, where are those people who loved one another for the sake of my majesty? Today, on the day when there is no shade but my shade, I will shade them. Who? Those people who loved one another for my majesty, for the sake of my majesty. For the sake of Allah, they loved one another. And it's not necessary that you have friendship with a person and you love them for the sake of Allah and you spend a lot of time with them and you go to their house and they come to your house and you work at the same place. It's also possible you love someone for the sake of Allah because when you read their books, you're enlightened, you enjoy so much. When you listen to their lecture, you are amazed. They fill you with iman. So, this is also loving someone for the sake of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Abu Dhar, which is the strongest link of iman? Meaning, what is it that makes iman strong? Abu Dhar said, Allah and His Messenger know best. The Prophet ﷺ said, to help one another for the sake of Allah. This is something that strengthens the iman. To have friendship with one another for the sake of Allah, and to have enmity for the sake of Allah. So what do we learn? That friendship for the sake of Allah, it is a means of strengthening your iman. Strengthening your iman. So many times people have this fear. Right now I'm studying the Quran. Once I go to school, once I go back to work, once I get married and move away, what's going to happen? Isn't it? I remember when I was studying the Quran, I had this fear. Especially towards the end. I was terrified. What's going to happen? Because you come every day, you're studying for so long, you go home, you open the Quran, any friends you speak to, any friends you work with, even they are friends that you've made through the Quran. People who you see on the weekend, friends that you've made through the Quran. But when this phase is coming to an end, you get terrified. What's going to happen? So what's the solution? What's the solution? Having such friends who keep you straight. Who keep a check on you. And it's always better to have a friend who is more strict than you. Who is not lenient than you, but more strict than you. Who has the guts to tell you your faults. To tell you you're wrong. To tell you that you need to improve. Because if they don't have the guts to do that, they won't be able to correct you. They won't be able to keep you straight. So this is friendship for the sake of Allah. Now we also see, it is said that there are 3 types of friends. There are 3 types of friends. One friend is like food. What does it mean? You always need them. You can't do without them. You have to see them every day. You have to talk to them. You have to sit with them. You have to touch base with them. They're like food. You need them all the time. You're with them all the time. What does food do? Gives you energy. If you don't eat food, you're going to feel lethargic. You're going to feel lazy. You're not going to have any energy at all. So there are some friends whom you need all the time in order to boost your iman, in order to keep you straight. When you leave their company, when you are away from them, what happens? You feel low. But as soon as you meet them, you spend some time with them, as you go home, what happens? You feel energetic. You feel your iman has been rejuvenated. This is one type of friend. Another type of friend is like medicine. What does it mean? What does medicine do? It cures disease. It cures certain problems. And when do you need medicine? Every day? Sometimes, right? Whenever you are suffering from something, that is when you need medicine. So some friends are like medicine. What does it mean? That you do not meet them quite often. You only meet them or talk to them when you are concerned, when you are worried, when you're distressed about something. You need their advice. You understand? You need their advice. You need their input. So what do? You share your problems with them. And just as medicine cures disease, similarly, they give you good advice. You understand? You don't need them all the time. You need them especially when you need help. Doesn't mean you're using them. No. It's possible that this friend of yours lives very far away. They live in another country. They live in another city. You can't see them every day. You can't talk to them every day. It's not realistic. It's not practical. But still you're attached to them. Still you feel that they will always give you good advice. So what happens? You send them an email. You send them a text message. You give them a call. And you tell them, tell me what should I do? What do you advise? So such friends are like what? Medicine. They're another type of friends. And who are they? Those that are diseased themselves. What happens then? When you have those friends, you have a headache. When you have those friends, you waste 5 hours. When you have those friends, you say something foolish. You do something foolish. You go somewhere where you're not supposed to go. Do you need disease? Do you choose to have a headache? Would you ever choose to fall sick? Would you ever choose to have cancer? No, never. So how can we choose to have such friends who do not benefit us at all? In fact, when you sit with them and you get up, you feel as though you have wasted your good deeds. You feel it was a waste of time. One particular friend you added on Facebook, for example. You started following on Twitter. And what happens? What a waste of time. You end up seeing things that are so wrong. You end up reading things that are inappropriate. You end up visiting pages that are not right. So such friends are like a disease. When you talk to them, they're negative. When you talk to them, they discourage you. When you sit with them, they make you sick. They backbite. So such friends, you do not need them. Because if you stay with them, they're going to make you sick. They're going to make you fall back. They're going to make you suffer. So analyze yourself. Who do you sit with? Now you see the 3 types of friends? Analyze the kind of friends that you have, the people who you're with, and see what category they fall into. I'm not saying that people who are, not a good influence on you, you just cut off from them and you never speak to them ever again. Just limit your interaction with them. Either pull them this way. If they're not coming this way, if they're not changing along with you, then remember, if you stay with them, you are going to become like them, which is very dangerous. Isn't it so? It's very dangerous. So either you have to put in your maximum effort to pull them this way. If they're not coming this way, then you cannot be with them. Like the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say to Uqba? You have to say the Shahada, only then I will eat your food. When you will say, then I will eat, then I will stay your friend. When he said the Shahada, the Prophet ﷺ stayed his friend. So, if you're really friends with them, And if they really claim to be your good friend, then remember, if you tell them something, they should accept it. If you encourage them to do something, they should listen to you. If you are doing something, they should support you. And if they're not supporting you, if they're not listening to you, then remember, they're not your friends. They're not your friends. Because what does friendship mean? Loyalty. What does friendship mean? Making one another happy. Pleasing one another. Isn't it so? Cooperating with one another. So if you're doing something, they don't cooperate with you. If you want to get up and pray, they say, don't pray. Pray later. If you tell them, I can't go here, I cannot watch this movie, I cannot watch this program, there's a lot of haram, I cannot watch it. But they still tell you, no, you have to watch it, don't be so extremist. Are they your friends then? No. They're not loyal to you. They're not concerned about your feelings. They're not concerned about your akhirah. So never think of such people as friends. They are a disease. So treat them like a disease. And what do you do with the disease? You cure it. Isn't it so? So such friends as well, you have to fix them. If they don't get fixed, then you cannot put yourself at such a big risk. So identify the kind of friends. Because otherwise, it's very dangerous. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. After the Qur'an came to me. Now sometimes I see, even in class, that alhamdulillah, all of you are sitting together, the relationship that you have, the friendship that you've developed, it's because of the Qur'an. When you're sitting together, you have the Qur'an open in front of you. But sometimes what happens, during class even, we influence one another in a very negative way. Like for example, pass a note, write something down, and give it to the other person. The class is going on, and what happens? As you read the note, as you finish the conversation, you're like, okay, where are we on the juz? لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. Isn't it so? They made me forget the ayah number. I heard it, but I don't remember anymore because she said something to me. If you stay with such friends, if you sit with such friends, you will not be able to concentrate. You will not be able to benefit from the course. There are many people who come, who start studying, but because they don't have the right friends, what happens to them? Their time is a waste. They sit in class, but they're thinking about other things because constantly people are talking through passing notes to one another, marking each other's notes, talking to one another, whispering, nudging. This is bad influence. So first of all, tell your friends, if they ever do something like this, not to do it. Because if you really wish well for them, then you're not only concerned about your notes, but you're also concerned about their notes. You're not only concerned about your understanding, but also their understanding. So out of well-wishing for your friends, correct them. And if you feel that they are a distraction, it's just that you're like that. When you're sitting with one another, you cannot help but talk. You cannot help but communicate. Then go sit with a stranger. Go sit with someone whom you're not that close with. I remember when I was doing the course, I would always sit close to the stage. When we were doing the course, the stage was very, very huge. It was such that by the desk of the teacher, you could sit on the floor, on the right and also on the left side. So the right side was reserved for the teachers and the left was reserved for the students. And I would always sit next to the stage on the left side. Always. Why? Because there you're under the eye of the teacher. You cannot say anything. You cannot do anything. You cannot dare to get up and go. No matter how badly you have to go, you cannot go. And I would do that only to make sure that I am paying attention in class. Because I had experienced that I would sit with friends who were actually very good friends. Praying salah, doing their lesson, very good at tests. But it's just that because you're close to them, you're sitting in class, you cannot help but talk. Isn't it? You cannot help but communicate with one another. It's only natural. So for your good, for their good, choose a spot in class where you will not be distracted by anything, by anyone. For your own good, for their good. I remember my group in charge, she was so strict, she would come and watch each and every one of us during class. That what are we doing? Who are we sitting with? How are we writing? How are we taking notes? And I used to feel very annoyed at the beginning. But then later on I realized she wants my benefit. She wants my good. And if it wasn't for her strictness, I wouldn't be able to complete the course the way I did. I wouldn't be able to benefit from the course the way I did. It was her strictness. It was her firmness. So when our friends are strict with us, when they're firm with us, don't take them as, oh, she doesn't like me anymore. She's just gone crazy. I don't know what's wrong. She's becoming an extremist. She doesn't even care for friendship. Don't think like that. She wants good for you. And if you want good for yourself and her, do what she's telling you to do. Because one type of friendship is for personal benefit. The other type of friendship is well-wishing for the other. And so if someone is a well-wisher to you, accept that well-wishing. Don't consider it as something that is against you, against your benefit. So this is something very, very important. That لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. It's possible you have memorized your lesson. It's possible you are doing your lesson, but because you spend so much time talking to them, so much time discussing things with them, you don't get time to revise. You don't get time to pay attention. All the time you're thinking about their stories. Isn't it so? So, do a favor to yourself and do a favor to your friends. When it comes to certain things like the Quran, then it requires your 100% attention. And if you have to choose a place where you're not sitting with a friend, it does not matter. It's not that you're not friends with them anymore. No. It's for your good, it's for their good. We learn in Surah Al-Saffat, ayah 51 to 57 as well, that when people will reach Jannah and other people will reach hellfire, what's going to happen? قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ. A speaker among them, among the people of Jannah, he will say, indeed, I used to have a companion. I used to have a very close friend. يَقُولُ, he would say to me, that are you indeed of those who believe? What? That أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ? That when we have died and become dust and bones, we will indeed be recompensed? So I used to have a friend who used to make me doubt about the religion. He used to question me, do you really believe in this? You really believe that we're going to be resurrected? So what's going to happen? قَالَ هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ? Then it will be said to the people of Jannah that would you care to look? Would you want to see where your friend is? فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. And he will look and see him in the midst of the hellfire. And then he will say, قَالَ تَاللَّهِ إِن كِدْتَ لَتُرْدِينِ. By Allah, you almost ruined me. You almost destroyed me. If I had been your friend, if I had stayed with you, my religion would have gone. I would have been destroyed. وَلَوْلَا نِعْمَةُ رَبِّي لَكُنْتُ مِنَ الْمُحْضَرِينَ. And if it had not been for the favor of my Lord, I would have been of those brought in hell. So what do we see? That there are those people who compromise when it comes to their friends. But there are other people who stand firm. You understand? One is the example that is mentioned in this ayah, and the other is that which is mentioned in Surah Al-Saffat. In this ayah, what do we see? That the person who listened to his friend, لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. And in Surah Al-Saffat, what do we see? He did not listen to his friend. He did not get influenced by him. If he could not change him, he left his company. He left his friendship. Because if you continue with such friendship, it leads to disaster.